Hi everyone! I'm here today to talk to you about the TAPIF program. So I've mentioned a couple of times that I did this TAPIF program, which is this teaching assistant program in France, my very first year, 9 years ago when I got here, and I've had a lot of questions about the program, so I thought that this was the perfect opportunity to do a video on this subject, and also the perfect opportunity to invite a very special guest to talk about it with me. So this is Maggie, and we'll let Maggie introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Maggie.
Hi Maggie.
Hi Kate. Kate and I met in the TAPIF program 9 years ago.
Woo!
In Poitiers.
Yes!
And we taught together the first year. I stayed another year.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Expert TAPIF here. Did the full 2 years.
Full 2 years. And then I came to Paris and went to fashion design school, and I've been working as a knitwear designer for the last 5 years in France, in Paris. So yeah, been here. Kate and I actually came to Paris at the same time.
Oh, please. So Maggie is one of my closest friends in France and a real expert, along with myself, about the TAPIF program. So we're going to talk to you about our do's and don'ts of the TAPIF program. I have an extra 5 tips that I added in a one-pager below, so if you want even more tips about the program, don't hesitate to check that out. Otherwise, let's get started.
Let's do it.
Do consider the differences between high school and middle school versus primary school. So when Maggie and I applied for the program, and it looks like it's still the same today, you got to give your preference as to whether you prefer to have older students or younger students. And I remember back then that I put older students because I was still really uncomfortable about my French, even though of course you have to have a certain level to go and speak French. Someone was like, do you want to speak in front of an entire class of 30 people? And I was a bit shy. And in my case, when I was working with the high school, middle school students, I didn't really need to speak French a lot. I honestly wasn't even allowed to speak French with them because they wanted the kids to think that I only understood English, and therefore they were forced to speak English with me. So I think that was a little bit different compared to your experience when you did primary school, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of speaking in French with the kids because obviously they can't understand anything you're saying if they don't have any kind of it was kindergarten, CP, all the way to 5th grade, CM2. I think I sang head, shoulders, knees, and toes about 7,000 times.
I did no lesson plans, for example.
Yeah, and there was a lot of singing. A lot of singing in primary school, a lot of
But then you probably didn't have as many students that really didn't want to be there and that refused to speak English.
They were so excited. Every time I got to school, they were like, hello Maggie, hello Maggie, hello Maggie. They were so excited.
I did not. Nobody was excited about me being there. None of those high school students had any interest in speaking with me.
Yeah, and I remember feeling really lucky that I was in primary school because my experience at school was really fun.
Yeah.
But I think that there was more lesson planning that went into it because you had to have an idea of what you were going to teach them, and
I didn't have to prepare anything. There was really a high school English teacher there that would say go take these 5 students and go work on this in the classroom with them for this hour. Or go take this part of the class and do this. There was way less planning in advance and really no speaking French at work besides with the other teachers at the school. So
whereas I showed up and I came into the kindergarten class and I was the English
English professor.
Yeah, so I had to come prepared.
The expert. Of what you wanted to do with the kids.
And I was let's sing.
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. So it's just very different. So keep that in mind when you're applying.
Yeah. So don't be scared if you get a city that you've never heard of before.
This can happen.
So the reason I applied to the TAPIF program was because when I was studying abroad, I was dating a French guy in the Alps, and so I had to come back. And so obviously Grenoble was the city that was closest to the Alps that I could apply to. And so I put that as my top choice, and then whatever my second choice was, I don't remember. And then third choice, I put Poitiers because it was the only city in the
bottom 3
that was closest. Yeah, that was closest to the coast. And I ended up getting Poitiers. I ended up breaking up with my French boyfriend.
Surprise, surprise. Nothing worked out as planned.
Nothing worked out as planned. And don't be scared if that happens because it ended up being
It's such a good experience.
Yeah.
Normally when you're looking to applying, a lot of people are like, I want to live in Paris, I want to live in Bordeaux, I want to live in Lyon, I want to be in the dum-dum. I mean, I totally understand why, but there's so many advantages to being in a smaller town.
Yeah.
I think for me, based on other people I knew who lived in Paris, our French improved so much more living in a way smaller town. Because we weren't, like, you couldn't speak English. I mean, you could not speak English in Poitiers.
No, you couldn't.
So it was perfect for actually, like, really integrating and learning. And of course, I mean, it's cheaper to be in a smaller town, and you get to see just a different side of France, just the same way that New York isn't representative of all of the US, like Paris isn't representative of all of the way that the French people live.
It's fun to kind of explore different areas of France. And there's a lot of really, really beautiful parts of France that you don't necessarily know about or hear about because...
Yeah, they're just not as popular as some of the big cities. And if you decide you want to stay in France later on, a lot of job opportunities are going to be in these big cities, so you'll probably end up there at some point anyway. So take advantage of the year to really like see some things and explore places you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
Do consider commuting to school. So of course, you might be a little surprised if you get some unknown town you've never heard of, but don't stress too much because you always have the option of living in a bigger town close by. So I personally tried to get La Rochelle and ended up getting a really small town, like 45 minutes away from Poitiers called Loudun.
Yeah, and like not in the direction of La Rochelle.
No, not even closer to La Rochelle. I got like inland away. Anyway, so I decided that for me, I wanted to live in a town with a bit more of a social life and with some other students that would be there, some other TAPIF program students. And so I decided to live in Poitiers and to commute. So it's completely possible. I took a bus actually, commuting, but if I remember correctly, there was somebody with us who took their car.
Yeah, he was English and he brought his car over from England.
Right.
And
so you can kind of do whatever you want. I think it's important to remember it's not like studying abroad where everything's dictated, where you sleep, what you do, when you eat, where you go to class. It's a job. So you have to find like, you know, your own housing, your own like transport, your own bank, all of this kind of stuff. So if you don't want to live in the town that you get placed in, that's not necessarily a problem. So
no. Yeah.
Up to you. Do try to group your school hours together. So I know this is not always possible and it really depends on the flexibility of your school. But when I actually arrived for my first year, I told them that I was commuting between Poitiers and Loudun, and so that I would prefer, if possible, to have as many hours in a day when I go. And they ended up being able to group my hours Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, which was really nice because I knew I had Friday and Monday off, which gave me a 4-day long weekend so I could travel or work on my French. And I was also doing a second job at the same time so to make a little bit more money. I was babysitting and teaching English, and so it was nice to have my hours grouped together. You can't guarantee it, but I don't know if yours would group.
So I worked in primary schools that were either in or like very close to the center of Poitiers where I also lived, and I didn't get to choose as much like with my schedule, and it was easy for me to be flexible. And I don't even know if I worked a full 12-hour work week.
We're talking about 12 hours here, so sometimes it's not as easy to arrange with them, but don't be shy about asking. It's a job, you know, so you can see if there's any flexibility for them, and if there's not, there's not. But if you manage to group your hours together, it does help in terms of, you know, traveling and doing some other stuff on the side if you want to do a university at the same time, etc.
So do be realistic about your salary. Let's be real, 790 euros a month for
12 hours of work is a pretty awesome salary.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It's a pretty sweet deal. And if you're not in Paris or one of the bigger cities, that's kind of like the cost of living is pretty high. It's really easy.
Yeah, you can definitely live off of it, but you are going to be living a modest, you know, student-esque lifestyle.
Yeah.
So don't hesitate to take advantage of some of the really great, I guess, advantages of living in France. For example, everybody doesn't qualify for the CAF, but they do have some benefits in France to help you with housing. And when Maggie and I were living in Poitiers, I think my rent already was like 225 euros, which is like crazy insane when we think about what we pay in Paris rent, but it was 225 euros, and then I got some benefits from the CAF at about 150, so my rent ended up being 70 euros a month. And
yeah, mine was even better. My rent was 330 and the CAF reimbursed 300.
Yeah, I mean, so you can just...
I thought it was scandalous that I was getting paid that much. My rent was free and I worked 12 hours a week. Like, I was like, what? This is the sweetest deal.
Yeah, no, there's some really sweet deals in France like that. The CAF, well, and you can think about like phone bills, like you got free now. I mean, for 20 euros a month and a SIM card, as long as you bring your own phone over.
Paid sponsor.
No. Yeah, no. This is not even sponsored, guys. And you bring your phone over and you just get like unlimited everything. Unlimited Wi-Fi, unlimited calls to the US, unlimited texting. It's really awesome. For what you're doing is great.
Yeah.
Do keep all your paperwork. So this is something that's relevant no matter what you're doing in France, no matter how long you want to stay, is keeping your paperwork. The French administration system is known for asking you things like your electricity bill from 8 years ago, translated into Chinese with a fancy stamp on it just to make sure it's really Chinese. They are really, really crazy about paperwork. So really save everything. You'll get tons of things coming from your bank, from the CAF, from your apartment, your pay stubs. I made the massive mistake of throwing those pay stubs away. I didn't think that I needed them.
Yeah.
And because I stayed in France afterwards, I was asked for them at one point and I could not produce them and I couldn't get copies of them. I would just say it's a lesson. You never know when you do the TAPIF program if you're going to stay any longer in France afterwards or not. You could be like Maggie and I, who 9 years later.
Like, what happened? Why am I still here?
Why are we still here? And you're going to want to have saved this paperwork. So I would just really keep everything. Get a little folder and don't throw anything away until you've permanently left.
And you may ask yourself, why? Why, Kate and Maggie? Why would I ever need a pay stub from 10 years ago? Well, I applied for nationality, and when you apply for nationality, you have to prove and show why and how you've been living in the country for as long as you have been. And they ask you for proof of your address. So that's like your contract that you have for the apartment that you're renting, your pay stubs, I mean, all those things. Like,
yeah, just don't get rid of them.
Don't get rid of them.
You won't know when you might need them.
Yeah. Don't ignore the other assistants.
Very important.
I don't think you'll want to, because you'll get like you'll arrive and everyone will be like, oh my gosh, like let's go get a drink and let's meet up and where is like everyone kind of
Where are you living? Where are you staying? Have you opened a bank account yet?
Help.
Are you lonely? Are you homesick? Are you scared? Yeah, no, definitely. You should really depend on that group of people. It's important. Like, you're coming to France as well to learn French, so I think we understand that. You know, you want to have a group of French friends, or you want to integrate. And
you want to get a French boyfriend.
You want to get a French boyfriend.
Or girlfriend.
And so you're not always like wanting to gravitate necessarily towards the other English speakers, but it's such a lifesaver at the beginning. Like,
yeah, and it's so nice to have Anglophone friends. I mean, Kate and I have been friends for 9 years, and I mean, she's like a rock for me in my life here, because you can have all of these problems with visas and I mean, during the TAPIF program, like a million things will come up where you're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to have people that are going through the same exact thing as you that you can reach out to and get
and
support
totally
from.
relate to. And honestly, Maggie is probably one of the people I know in France, like one of the Americans I know with the most amount of French friends. She has a huge circle of really, really great French girlfriends. I'm also saying this is coming from somebody who has tons of French friends. It is totally okay at the beginning, and we encourage you highly to lean on those other assistants, because it'll make you kind of feel like you've got a little support group when you need it.
Yeah.
Don't wait until it's too late to organize your travel. So one of the most fabulous things about the TAPIF program isn't just the 12-hour work week, it's also the 2, 4, 6, 7 vacation weeks that you have off during 7 months.
Oh yeah, you have like weeks and weeks of vacation.
Oh yeah, you get off at least a week in October, 2 weeks at Christmas.
No, there's 2 weeks off like every
October,
or
December,
like
every 2 months.
Every 2 months you get 2 weeks off.
October, December,
basically.
February, April. You get all of that time off.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the best thing to do is take advantage, whether you're going to take advantage of traveling
Travel.
in France or you're going to go into Europe. But we encourage that you travel as much as you can during that time off. But one thing to keep in mind is that traveling during that time is really expensive, because it's the vacances scolaires for everybody in France. So everybody wants to travel at that time. So plan ahead of time your vacation.
So don't wait until the last minute to consider your strategy for reapplying. I did a second year, and it was something that I think we figured out in like April, and we finished working in June.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things that like I kind of knew I was gonna stay. Everybody that was there, I mean, it's a short. It goes by really fast.
7 months flies by.
Yeah, you get there in October, like end of September. You start working, and before you know it, like people start talking about like the master's programs that they're going to do elsewhere, or like they're going to go home and like get a real job. And
yeah.
And I was like,
plans.
I think I want to do it again.
Yeah.
So I did another year, and I kind of knew around like April, when everybody else was figuring things out, that was going to happen. And it was easy to do. I went to like the director of the program, and I had a good rapport avec my schools, and they were all like very, very happy to have me again. And I didn't have all the same schools the second year. I think I had one or two that were the same, but it really depends. I think it depends on the region as well, the academy that you get into. So I like speak from my experience, but I would imagine that it can vary.
Yeah, I think it's just really important that you get good feedback that first year from the schools that you're at, and that you know the woman or the man that runs like your academy, know them well. So if you're thinking you might want to do a second year, keep this in mind from the beginning. Like do a good job, make sure you show up on time, make sure you're well liked, and it'll go easier if you want to stay that second year.
Yeah, don't be like hungover.
Yeah,
you come to work.
Yeah, please. And just an extra one for you guys. Do have fun. We loved the TAPIF program. Obviously, I met Maggie, so we totally loved it, but it was so much fun. You made so many friends. You got to learn French. You got to explore. Appreciate it. You will never have this type of opportunity again.
It's so fun. If I could do it again, if I could have done it a third year, I would have.
You would go back and do it again. So have a good time. Enjoy yourself, and we wish you lots of luck at the program. All right, guys, I hope that you liked our top 10 do's and don'ts at the TAPIF program. Huge thanks to Maggie, our junior expert, for joining us. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, and I will, of course, get back to you. And until next time, bisous.
Bisous.